Good morning. I pray that you're having a great week this week. This is the middle of the year, and we're still sheltering in place. We're still keeping social distance. We're still wearing masks. We're still trying to figure out what to do in this new reality. But the main thing to do in this reality is simply this: to continue to be God's person, the person that He has made each of us to be. And yes, sometimes it's difficult, because it feels like all of the isms that are going around, and the way the virus keeps increasing, the way we have to open businesses, close businesses, the way that we have to go forward, then backwards, the way that many people are praying for a vaccine, the fact that we cannot meet in our worship houses of worship in person, we can't hug and kiss and shake hands with each other. Those are issues that continue to plague us. However, remember, the Father is bigger and greater than all of these. And the Father calls us to be obedient, to be His people. No matter what's going on around us, whether it's a plague, whether we're suffering the slings and arrows of racism, whether we are suffering in silence, whether we're suffering alone, whether we're suffering, period, whether we're swinging from the chandeliers of joy, the Father still says, be my person, because I have called you for such a time as this. Today we're looking at Queen Esther, because Queen Esther speaks to us in all of the things that I've just said. That she goes from being a poor little orphan girl, being cared for by her cousin Mordecai, being mentored and shepherded by him, to being the queen of the Persian Empire, married to one of the most, vile and angry men in history. Yet God put her there for a purpose. And that's the whole issue with us in our lives. Queen Esther's story is just simple. Read it in the book of Queen Esther in the Bible. It's a short book. Read it. Because you see what God does, even when we're not paying attention. Because I believe that because of what Esther has done with the Persian Empire and with what the Jews have done with the Babylonian Empire, which came first before, that it is because of that that Artaxerxes starts sending the Jews back home after Cyrus had, that they may go back home because of their influence. Because you never know what your influence means in the lives of men and women today. I was thinking about that this morning, about the men and women who've influenced my lives. My suspicions are that none of them would have thought that some kid from Cleveland sitting in a dorm room at Malone College, 525 25th Street Northwest in Canton, Ohio, would be able to lead kids around the world and adults around the world to Christ. Because we didn't know that. We didn't see that. But God did. Because they spoke into my life that men and women may come to know Jesus because of who He is in my life. And so Queen Esther is the model of that. Queen Esther is a Jewess in the harem of the king. But God gives her favor. He gives her so much favor that she becomes the queen. And so there arises an enemy, Haman. Haman hates the Jews because Mordecai won't bow down and the rest of them won't bow down. And so what does he do? He sets up a whole issue and convinces the king, let's get rid of those Jews. They're just trouble. Let's blame somebody for our problems. And that's all isms are. Let's blame somebody for our problems. Let's point the finger at them. Let's get rid of them. Let's ostracize them. Let's put them away so that we don't have to do it. Let's call them names. Let's create systems where they're never felt like they're equal. Because we are surrounded by Hamans. We're surrounded by them. So Mordecai goes to Esther. In chapter 4. He goes to Esther and says, listen, you've got to do something. What can I do says Esther. That's the same thing we all say. What can I do? Then Mordecai whispers these wonderful words in her life. He says, listen, don't imagine that you will escape any more than the Jews. Perhaps God has placed you in a place of power for a time like this. The Father has placed each one of us in a system of friends and family that extends sometimes around the world because of our friendships, because of Facebook, because of Instagram, because of all the social media that we have. We get to speak into their lives. And Esther goes, I don't know what to do. We all say that. So Mordecai tells her, go pray. So she says, Mordecai, initiate a fast for me. For 3 days, pray. That we may hear the Father. So he does. And then Esther says these immortal lines because she's going to go see the king unannounced. Because you just don't walk into the throne room and say, honey, we need to have a meeting. My wife was good at that. I always knew that when I was in trouble, when she said, sweetheart, yes, we need to have lunch. Oh, you couldn't do that with King Artaxerxes. You had to have an appointment. And so she says, I'm going to go see the king. I'll go see the king right now. And so she uttered those wonderful lines, if I perish, I perish. Because to come into the king's presence unannounced, uninvited, meant that you just die. Many of us have that same fear. If I speak truth to the people around me, will I die? Will they stop liking me? Will they no longer be my friend? Will they run away from me when they see me coming? Will I speak too harshly? Will I speak too lightly? Will I? No. Because those are words of faith. Lord, I need you to speak through me here. Paul helps us here. He says, when you go before people, magistrates and people of power, don't worry about what you will say because the Holy Spirit will tell you what to say. And so in all of our networks, as we deal with the Hamans around us, we realize that the Father has called each and every one of us to be his person in such a time as this. Each one of us now has been born in either the 20th or the 21st century, which means we understand all of the issues of the 20th and 21st century. We get to speak them. We get to speak God's language into the people around us, that men and women come to know him. Because when we start to speak truth and love to people, we're calling them to righteousness and justice. What do we do with the Hamans in our lives? We expose them just like Esther did. We speak to their coded language. We call them out and we speak gently to them when their language is not correct. When our friends are chiding, oh, I'm just joking. No. Because if we're going to speak to the isms around us, if we're going to speak to the fears around us, if we're going to speak to all the things that have been exposed, not just because of COVID-19, but largely because of COVID-19, then we need to speak God's truth by being God's person. Why? Because God has put you and me in this position to speak his truth in love, to save his people. One more time. God has put you and I in this position at this time to speak truth in love, to save his people. Father God, sometimes this feels too much. But Lord, you have given us the example of Queen Esther. Lord, you have placed us in this exact moment to speak truth to power. Lord, to speak your truth and call our friends to righteousness. Because, Lord, we're surrounded by Hamans, Lord, who speak their hate. Lord, help us to speak your love, your truth, your righteousness into their lives. That, Father, like Esther, you would use us to save your people. These things, Father, we pray in your holy your mighty and your blessed name. Amen. Remember, the Father has called you unto himself. Live like the child of God you are.